Hello guys and welcome to my channel. To all my subscribers guys, thank you very much for being with me and for all your support. Stick around. This video is a different type of video. It's going to be a tutorial. It's going to be long but very useful. We're going to talk about carbon fiber and how to use it on any sporting equipment, either for strength or just for looks. It doesn't have to be an electrical skateboard. It could be any other equipment such as snowboards, surfboards, electrical skateboards, normal kick skateboards, anything you want. You can also use it just for looks. So for instance, if you want to make your vehicle look fancier and nicer looking, all your car panels can be wrapped in the real carbon fiber. So what is carbon fiber? Carbon fiber is a material which is weaved out of single-stranded carbon fiber string, which is about 5 to 10 micrometer in diameter. Each string consists mostly from carbon molecules. What are the benefits of carbon molecules? They're lighter, they're stronger, they do not expand as much or contract as much with the temperature change, and they look absolutely awesome. The process of covering any existing parts with carbon fiber, it's called carbon fiber skinning. You don't need any tools, you don't need any special equipment, just patience and listening to step-by-step video like this. I have already completed skinning of top and the bottom of my DIY off-road electrical skateboard. I'm still in the middle of building it, but mechanically she's almost there. The only thing I need to do is electronics. So let's take a look how the carbon fiber will look after a simple process that you can follow at your home. The carbon fiber skinning process gave me such a good results and exactly what I needed. Made the deck that I had to custom cut stronger and also looking very nicely. I could not resist but to share with you guys, my subscribers and my new watchers. So let's start with step-by-step tutorial on how to skin any surface with real carbon fiber and making it strong and also awesome looking. So in order to complete the skinning, carbon fiber skinning of your deck, you will need the real carbon fiber material. You will need some mixing cups for your resin. Get 4 or 5 of them guys. You will need some disposable brushes, semi-quality, because every time you use it you will throw it away. A base coat, preferably black. It needs to be black because your carbon fiber is black. The hardener for it, and also the XCR epoxy coating resin and the hardener for it. Some 240 and 120 sandpaper. And most important thing that you will need is, most importantly guys, you do need some patience. This process here will take some time, and if you follow the instructions correctly you will end up with a beautiful carbon fiber finish. You will apply multiple layers on this deck, and between those layers we have precise timing. Couple of things before we crack on with this project. I would really like to mention the company where I got the materials from. They are a UK based company which is called Easy Composites. Guys, I have paid for my materials, so this is not some sort of freebie and I'm doing a video. Absolutely not. The reason why I would like to mention this company is because they don't know me, never seen me in my life, but when I had some questions and I was emailing the customer service, I was getting all the technical questions answered straight away. And trust me, I have emailed them quite a few times. Good response, awesome delivery, and the quality of materials spot on. So the step number 1, prepare your deck. Cut it to whatever shape you require. You prepare the surface that you're about to coat with real carbon fiber. If you had some old grip tape on it, take it off. If you had some glue on it, take it off. I got videos how to do it on my channel, so take a look. Then you are to sand down the whole surface to make it nice and smooth, and also available for the base coat to grip onto. You can use a sandpaper or sanding blocks, or if you do have and know how to use power tools, use the power sander. Lightly dampened rag. While the deck is drying, let's mix up the base coat. Guys, this is critical to get the mixture right. So I'm using an electronic scale. Place the cup over the scale, then you turn it on. This way you know that it's zeroed. On every component that you buy, doesn't have to be from Easy Composites, from whoever else, you will see the ratio you need to apply the components together by. So this one here is 100 by 33, so pretty much 1, 2, 3. So you will apply 30 gram of epoxy base coat resin and 10 gram of the epoxy hardener, or 45 gram of epoxy base coat and then 15 gram of the hardener, depending on the size of the surface you're trying to cover. So it's 1 to 3. Make sure you shake up the base coat in order to get the color into the resin. I already know that for a longboard deck you'll require about 45 grams of base coat, and to top it up is 15 to 16 grams of hardener. Guys, don't think if you put more hardener in it's going to do a better and faster job. It will not. So after you apply the components together, what you do is for a couple of minutes you thoroughly mix it together. And trust me, every time you prepare your resin or your undercoat, you want to make sure that you mix them up very nicely. It's very important, otherwise you have the sticky patches and it's just going to go horribly wrong for you. So you make sure you scrub all the edges and the bottom of the cup and just keep on stirring it around for 2 to 3 minutes. This is exactly the same procedure and exactly the same ratio for the next layers of the resin. I would strongly recommend to use the protection on your arms and also use the safety goggles over your eyes. All the epoxy resins and the hardeners are highly toxic. You should not be eating, smoking, drinking around them, and also they do act as a allergen, so you could get an allergic reaction if it gets on your skin, irritant and everything else. So please protect yourself and use your PPE, personal protective equipment. So your base coat is now ready, and providing you've got your gloves on and your goggles on, you just take an ordinary brush. I'm using the 2-inch wide brush, and you just cover the top of the deck with the base coat. It's pretty much like painting a door. So guys, the base coat is now applied, and this is a time where I will remind you about being patient. We now have to wait for approximately 2 hours. I don't trust my memory, so I'm going to use a normal kitchen timer and start the count. In roughly 2 hours we'll get to that stage where we can apply the real carbon fiber onto the base coat. Note that the temperature, the ambient temperature of the air, needs to be 20 to 21 degrees. That's where the 2-hour rule will apply. We're still going to check the surface and we'll make sure it's tacky but not runny before we apply the carbon fiber. So I'm leaving the deck alone to dry and we're going to prepare the carbon fiber. It's time for us to look at this beauty in more detail. Nothing is holding this material together at this particular moment. So I've got to be extremely careful unrolling it. You cannot really pull on one end of the material because you'll stretch the strands and you will ruin the pattern of your carbon fiber. But here it is, a real carbon fiber sheet. Let's cut the piece that we need. So guys, the piece is now cut and I have to be extremely careful how am I going to take it back into my workshop. Oh, that is so delicate, guys. So delicate. So 2 hours later, the undercoat is pretty much exactly where we want it to be. The way to find out this, guys, is if you put your finger on the deck, almost got you there, gloves first, you touch the surface of the deck and you will be feeling a bit of tackiness. You will be leaving the print on the surface, but you get nothing on your glove. And now you know that you are ready to apply the carbon fiber. Please be really careful when you are handling the carbon fiber. It is very gentle material. Nothing is holding it together at this moment. Starting from the middle, you will apply the material on your deck. Very gently pressing it down and trying not to stretch it or disturb the fibers. The fibers at the moment are not locked in. They will move around. And if you do move them around, this is exactly the pattern you will be stuck with. So nicely and gently from the middle of the deck outwards, press it down onto the undercoat. Guys, carbon fiber is one beautiful and magical material. I just wanted to show you and to demonstrate to you how actually gentle this material is. It's actually the lightest and the strongest material you can get, but when it's not sealed and it's not fixed down with resin, this beautiful and strong material falls apart very easily. You can distort it, as you can see, the pattern breaks up straight away. And also, the material itself will just fall apart. Look at this. It's like magic. So guys, the carbon fiber layer is now applied onto the base coat, and we're going to leave it for minimum 8 hours. I'm actually going to give it overnight to cure, and we're going to do the next step, which is laying first resin coat to lock in the fibers. We are now ready for the next step. Just one tip, guys. please make sure that your deck is as level as you can get it, both ways. This will make sure that when the resin spreads out and self levels, you won't get those really bad runs or areas where it's much thicker, because the resin does have tendency to kind of shift around on the surface. Normally, manufacturer recommends to apply the first coat, thin coat, just to lock the fibers in 3 hours after you apply the material. I'm doing it a little bit differently. I gave it overnight to dry, so you can follow either or. It's up to you. So if you're in a rush, 3 hours later, if you got the time, let it dry and stick down nicely and do it the next day. Same principle, we're going to mix up another resin amount. I'm going for 45 gram of resin and 15 gram of hardener. Scales. Make sure you get the mixture as perfect as you can. Pour the components in slowly, because you will be surprised how fast them numbers do jump on the scale. So 45-15, and that's our 3-to-1 mixture. And mix it nice and thoroughly for 2 minutes, making sure you scrub the sides and the bottom of the cup. And now using another new brush. That's why I said get plenty of them, guys. Every time you do a layer, you will dispose of these brushes. Just like a normal painting, we're going to apply a nice and even thin coat, no running, nice and carefully, because at the moment the fibers are not locked in, and we're going to soak the material in resin in order to make them solid and stop from the moving around and changing shape. So the carbon fibers are now locked in. We will leave this deck to dry for 8 hours. I'm going to give it overnight, and I will carry on with the next step tomorrow. Purely just because I want to make sure it's fully settled, cured, because I will be working on the edges, and that's where I want to make sure carbon fiber stays put. So we are back, guys, 12 hours later. Now the first coat, the fixing down the fibers coat, is now dry, really dry. I always give it more than recommended. Recommended time is 8 hours minimum. I normally give it 12 plus hours just to ensure it's nice and dry. So at the moment what we have is we have the excess material dangling off the edges of the deck. So we need to take it off, and the way I do this, you can use an ordinary file. You find the area where the material is bored in the actual deck, and you start running the file over it. Roughly the same procedure as if you would have been applying a new grip tape on your deck. Some people use file just to get that perfect edge. And when you finally break through, it only takes a couple of minutes, you see that the leftover material comes off at a perfect angle and creates a perfect edging. So let's do the deck all the way around using the same method. You can use power tools if you want. And guys, please use the respirator and mask. Do not breathe in all this dust created by rubbing down the carbon fiber and also the resin. That's definitely not good for you, so please be safe. Using a file gives you much more control. So any way around the surface where it's bending or turning, I'm using the file. Perfect. So now you got yourself a perfectly shaped deck. All the excess is gone and you like the way your edges are. Only problem is that this deck is not ready for the next coat because it's too smooth and shiny. We need to ensure that the next coat will stick to the surface. So what do we need to do? So using 120 grit paper, sandpaper, we're going to roughen up the surface. One thing watch out for, guys, do not break through the carbon fiber. Clean the deck regularly because you will start noticing the areas that are not yet keyed correctly. So any shiny surfaces, not really good. Any duller surfaces but without breaking through into the carbon fiber are good to go. And a little bit more sanding. So vacuum the surface to get rid of any dust and then just wipe off any residual dust of the surface of the deck. Make sure you let it dry very nicely. I'm using a lightly dampened cloth and you can see it's picking up the dust very nicely. The deck is nice and dry. If you guys get any areas where you got the wood just showing through slightly because you sand it down too deep, and again, this is only what I do, you don't have to. I've got a separate video on showing all this stuff, so take a look on my channel. There's a chain of videos called Did You Know ESK8. I'm using a massive Magnum Sharpie just to hide any of the wood showing through. And trust me, after the resin goes on, it will look perfect. But it's up to you. Do you have time? If you don't carry on with the next step. If you do, you're welcome to stay with me. Guys, the reason why I'm asking if you have time, you have to have patience, but if you are watching my video, you do, haha, you have to apply 3 coats of resin every 2 hours from now on. So you have to be around. You cannot leave your house and you have to be available to carry on and see through the whole process in one go. So, the surface is now dry, clean, it's fully keyed, it's all roughened up and ready to receive the first coat. Exactly the same way as we done the base coat, guys. The ratio of mixing is 1 to 3. I'm using an electronic scale. I will also going to use a normal standard cooking timer to give me an indication if 2 hours has passed. So the first coat goes on, roughly 2 hours, considering that you have 20 degrees Celsius in your area of work. We're going to come back and check. If the surface is tacky but not runny, we apply the next coat. 2 hours, next coat. Then we're going to leave this deck for 8 hours to rest. So, let's crack on. Guys, 2 tips. I've learned this when I was doing the bottom of the deck. For starters, make sure you mix your resin really well. I'm actually timing it, so I'm doing it for a minimum of 3 minutes, scraping the bottom and the sides of the cup. If you're not actually timing it, you will do it too fast because you're excited, you want to apply the next coat. Tip number 2 is to wipe the surface of your deck. Because you're working in a dusty area, you were just sanding down. Some of the dust will settle on your board without you knowing, and it will create some problems, especially on the last and final coat. So now, using a fresh brush, I normally just rub it on my arm to get rid of any loose hairs. We're going to apply a nice and smooth coat. Same as we've done with the base coat. Nice and even, no runs. If you are using the XCR epoxy, which I am using at the moment, you should not have any issues with air bubbles. I can see the air bubbles actually breaking up while I'm applying them. If you are using the EL2 resin, however, you will have some air bubbles, and a hot air gun or a torch can be used to get rid of them. Please ensure that you are careful around the edges. You don't want too many runs down the edges because it is very painful to get the nice smooth surface all around the deck, especially if you are coating both sides, top and bottom. The XCR resin is self-leveling, so by applying an equal amount all throughout the surface, you should have a perfect coat. This here is my favorite part of the process, because you can actually work on your deck and at the same time still be a good father, husband, partner or a son, because you have to leave the deck now alone for 2 hours. So get in the house, do some dishes, do some cleaning or whatever hell you need to do to be a good one. Another good tip: as soon as you apply any coating, make sure that you don't have any dust flying around in the room. So don't be walking around the area or let people walk around the area opening doors, opening windows, because that will drive dust on the deck. And trust me, little tiny piece of dust will create like an air bubble looking thing that is impossible to take out. See you in 2 hours. So 2 hours passed, hands protected, and quick test. Leaves the fingerprint, but nothing on my glove. Ready for the next coat. So brought my deck to my living room, where I know it's the least chance for it to get any dust on the surface. Let's leave it for 2 hours. She will become sticky and will apply the last coat. So guys, the surface is now tacky but not runny, and we are ready for the final coat. And let me tell you something: if you get this coat perfectly nice, dust-free, you are pretty much done. This is how important this is. Dust-free. So nice clean clothing, no dust, the room with least disturbance, no airflow through the room, no dust introduction to your last and final coat. Brand new good quality brush and also nicely mixed up resin. Get rid of all the loose hairs and apply the new coat. While applying the coat, the final coat, look down the light. You can see all the imperfections. And while the resin is still wet, you can always apply just a little bit more and just run your brush over the surface you're not happy with, and that will become nice, straight and equal. The final coat is now applied and the deck looks absolutely awesome. The carbon fiber is now popping. It's like 3D. It's like a hard candy, just want to bite it. Absolutely gorgeous. Now, leave it for minimum 8 hours. To me, I'm going to leave it for minimum of 24 to 48 hours. Just to make sure she's nice, cured, reach the perfect hardness. So guys, the final coat on the deck is now nice and dry. It is not sticky. It's looking absolutely gorgeous. Look at this, guys. Pure carbon fiber, nice and shiny. The one thing I would like to let you know, guys, in the original videos on how to do this by the company, it states that you can already handle the boards after 8 hours. This is not what I found, and I have done the bottom of the deck, I've done the top of the deck. I strongly recommend that you leave this deck alone for 3 to 4 days. I would say 72 hours minimum. This way this deck will not have this nasty sticky feeling to it. I have done a mistake when I've done the bottom of the deck and attached it too early. I was trying to get rid of it using the spirit and white spirit and everything else. It made it all cloudy. Anyway, leave it alone for minimum of 72 hours. Because I've done the bottom and the top of the deck, what I had to do is, when I was applying the resin on the top of the deck, my bottom part of the deck was already done. So all the runouts of the resin are now affecting the bottom of my deck. So if you look closely, I wasn't very careful and the resin ran down from the top of the deck to the bottom of the deck, and I got a bit of resin residue right here. That is not a big issue at all, guys. I wasn't overly happy with my first trial of the bottom of the deck anyway, and I've got some bits here, as you can see, with a bit of dust and also some air bubbles, and I want my deck to be perfect, so I wanted to do another coat of the bottom of the deck anyway. So what we are going to do is we're going to sand down all of these drops of dried out resin, and also the bottom of the deck. We're using 240 grit paper, and we're going to apply another coat, and we're going to leave this deck alone for at least 48 hours. Guys, you don't have to do this, but I had a couple of air bubbles and a couple of dust bits stuck on the resin. That's just me. I'm picky. So I'm taking this layer off the deck and I'm going to recoat it. You don't have to do this if you are okay with the finish that you already achieved. It's just me. I want it to be perfect. The last perfect coat, guys. The last perfect coat. Take your time and treat it very, very specially. Dust-free room, 21 degrees. Make sure you wipe the deck before you applied the last coat. Make it count. So the final coat on the bottom of the deck is now on. After sanding it down, she did look quite bad, you got to admit. But as soon as you put some resin on it, the board is now back to nice and shiny surface. I done this time the last coat in my living room, no dust, and the surface is spot on. One thing, guys, don't make the mistake I did. Do not touch this board after 8, 24 or 48 hours. Leave her alone for at least 72 hours. I know it's long, but this will make sure that your surface is perfect, fully cured, and you don't introduce your fingerprints or anything else on it. So guys, 72 hours later, now we've got both sides of the deck skinned with real carbon fiber. I do have a couple of air bubbles, very tiny ones, but I'm happy with that. The deck is a little bit sticky, but this is normal. That does happen once in a while. I'll show you what to do with situation if you feel a bit of stickiness on the surface. The top of the deck, nice, no issues whatsoever. Bear in mind that this part here will be covered with a grip tape, so I'm interested in this part right here. They need to be nice and clean. What we do have is some resin run, and also here on the corner. This is what I was doing the edges, and the resin obviously will run while it's drying. That's not an issue either. So yeah, happy in general. Looks absolutely awesome. Real carbon fiber. I love the way it looks. But also main idea was to make this deck stronger after cutting it out. So using the spirit did help us to get rid of the stickiness on the top of the deck. It's absolutely dry and spot on. And this is what you want to do before you sand down any imperfections on your deck, otherwise all the dust will just get stuck on a sticky surface. Now using a new piece of 120 grit paper, I'm going to get rid of these drops of resin that I had occurred when I was doing the bottom of the deck. So now all the high spots are gone, and I'm going to use now 240 grit paper and sand the areas down and further. So I don't have anything smaller or rougher than 800 grit paper, so I'm going to use that from the start. If you could go 400, 600 and then 800, that would be better, but let's see if we can just get away going 800 straight away. I think we'll be just fine. So cut yourself a piece. And now we're going to wet sand the surface. Just ensure the sandpaper you got is for wet sanding, so it does not break up on you. We're going to go over the entire deck and all the surfaces, but with wet sand. I'm going on to 1200 grit. Guys, you don't have to. You can straight from 1200 start polishing the area and the surface using the rubbing compound. But because I happen to have 2000 grit paper, I was restoring my car lights and I got some left over, I'm going to go over the area one more time. So use clean water and sand it down even further using 2000. So guys, after you went through the grids and finished off with either 1200 or in my instance with 2500, just make sure you clean the surface of the deck of all that dust or potential dust, because it will turn all white after it dries out. This is how the surface looks like after the wet sanding to 2000. As you can see, it doesn't have this nice and gloss finish, so we're going to use some cutting compound to finish off this task. Let's start from a small area. We're going to start from here, from the beginning of the deck. And just a final wipe with a clean microfiber cloth, just to get them little bits of dust and compound of the surface. Well, not sure about you guys, but I am very happy with the surface. Look, ha! Beautiful.